Welcome aboard for another video.
Thanks, Conductor Keith. Hello, and welcome to another one of my videos. Now, the purpose of this video is to show you my upgraded Canadian Pacific, the Canadian. This train set has been seen before in past videos and shorts. Why don't we get to what I'm talking about today? Since we moved here to Eastern Ontario, I still haven't had track outside to run trains outside. My older videos, if you've been watching for a while, from Vancouver Island show that I also ran O-gauge trains outdoors in a garden railway setting, but also outdoors on an elevated loop on my deck. That had dual gauge track, one for large scale, like G scale, and one for O. Now that track outside is not powered, so I took this locomotive, which is a K-line, that used to be Erie Lackawanna, and I repainted and relettered it myself. I took the bottom pickups off and installed Canon rechargeable batteries for cameras, very, very, very long life, and a radio control system. So you've seen in previous videos, this locomotive outdoors pulling long trains. So this locomotive in regular use can go a long, long time on radio control. I'm going to keep this radio control because, yes, this week we have a new fence being put around the house here. Afterwards, we're going to start on planning the Garden Railroad, which will have dual gauge track and include radio control O-gauge. You've also seen in past videos this locomotive and this train. I initially had also taken off the pickup rollers and added battery and made this radio control. In fact, I have shorts and videos on my channel where I test two different radio control systems in this locomotive. Then, down here, I started building this O27 with really tight curves layout just to run my mostly old vintage trains for fun here indoors. However, recently I acquired used a good sized loop of Gargrave's really nice 3-rail O-gauge track made for outdoors. And if you've seen my previous videos from Vancouver Island, I had a garden railway planter. I'm going to build an elevated garden railroad as well, except it's going to use the Gargrave's track. It's going to be powered. Ergo, then I will be able to run any of my O-gauge equipment without radio control. So I took this engine, having given away the original rollers, I had got into the scraps box and kind of jury rigged. The plastic piece that insulates them underneath is gone, so it's a bit of styrene there. Anyway, I returned it back to track power. One of my goals was to have an O-gauge Canadian at some point. Well, I was at a train show in Montreal, I think it may have been Dorval, and picked up this Williams set. The locomotive ran, but the worm gear on one of the motors was so shot it sometimes bound up. So I took that motor out, tried to source another one to fit in. It's the original first generation Williams motors. Never could find one. So it ran with one motor, which meant that it struggled with the whole train, but I could get it going. Fast forward to today, I sourced 2 new trucks. Didn't come with all these, the accessories like the pilot stuff, just the trucks and motors from the last Williams products before Williams was bought by Bachmann. Now these 2 motors are very efficient. They're in there, and I don't know if you can see, you can kind of see in there. It's got a flywheel. So they're 2 flywheel equipped, very efficient motors. And all I had to do was put the various bits on from the original locomotive. The other thing I did was following the lead of my friend Michael, who used to also live on Vancouver Island. We used to in-person run trains together. Michael Ramsey. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description of this video. He is an awesome channel, very bright young man, does cool things. Well, he's taken modern era O-gauge trains that all come for some reason with the motors wired in parallel, which makes them, go fast. And he has started to wire his all in series. So now you have a much, much, much better, finer control, especially in the low end. But Terry, you say, there should have been 3 locomotives with this Williams set. Yes, there's this one. I also took this old K-line, which was, I actually can't remember what the road name was because I did it over 20 years ago. Well, I'm going to run it with this set. Fits right in. It's going to be between the locomotives and the rest of the train. I have also gotten rid of the pickups, as I have done all of these, and installed an LED light in there. The reason why I'm not running this old K-line on this 027 layout is because these rail cars can handle the extremely sharp curve. This one cannot. I also don't run this one only because the curvature around the S-curve adds a lot of pressure to the train, and sometimes it just literally pulls the couplers apart. The weight and the couplers and stuff is not a problem, but it does become a problem under such extreme curvature. So you'll have to wait. This will be the inaugural train of the Garden Railway Planter when I get that up and running. But upgrades, you say? Well, in previous videos, I had shown how I put LED light strips in all of these cars, operated with a 9-volt battery, and I used these cables in between. Now, the cables I used to run from under here to here. I did notice on the 027 track that sometimes the swing of the couplers undid these. Now, that looks kind of not great there, you know, but there's enough flex room in it. Doesn't look spectacular, maybe. But in the broader curves, when the rail car is more aligned, you know, straight, we'll say, you hardly notice that. So what this means is that when I stop this train at a station or something, it's constant lighting. So the lighting will never dim. Another upgrade since my last shorts and videos about this train was improving the lighting. It was actually really simple. I didn't have to improve much. The lights look good in the dark, but they could be brighter. They could be a little more cheerful. So given that the light strips were rated at 12 volts, the 9-volt battery on its own lit them up just fine, but I thought that if I can increase the battery power to 12 volts, that would give a 1/4 more power to the LED lights. All I did was I took these rechargeable AAA batteries, so there's 3 volts here, and wired them in series with the 9-volt, giving a total power going in here. You can't do it in parallel. A total power in here of 12 volts. And boy, is it much brighter. One thing that the camera does, and it doesn't know how to interpret it, is I see white LED lighting, you see blue, or at least on my screen I'm looking at, I see blue. Maybe in the editing I can try to dampen that down a bit, I don't know. And I see pure red, just red right here, whereas on my camera screen that I'm looking through, I see, well, it's not red, I don't know what it is, but it looks like an actual red light, like you'd see at a stoplight, you know, proper red light. Every time I try to film LEDs, they come out looking weird. It's even brighter to my naked eye. Having said that, let's give this train a run. Now, again, a bit awkward looking, running around, you know, 027 track, but still and for all, a good bit of fun. What did you think, John?
I think it's great, Terry.